Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Dom. It's August 7th. We're almost, believe it or not, almost to Labor Day, right? This is just a quick update as to where we're at with the project. Many of you who are preparers and auditors are way too busy, so I understand we haven't heard back from some of you. So this is one of the reasons why I'm taking this fall, if you will, this period of time to kind of just step back, take a breather, and I've submitted the draft TR to, if you will, a staff member to kind of do a peer review. I introduced him, I believe, to you at one of the meetings. Brian Robinson, he's our newest member to FASAB, comes from the U.S. Senate. Don't hold it against him. He worked in the Accounts Payable Dispersing Office. Actually, my wife worked there about 20 years ago, and I could tell you some stories about vouchers coming from senators, but never will I admit it online or have those stories recorded. But nevertheless, we welcome Brian, and he's going to take a look at the draft work we've done from a form and content, if you will, point of view. Should make OMB happy, at least that we're following our own procedures internally and trying to keep in pace, if you will, or in structure, how technical releases, if this is how the board wishes to go, should look, right? So Brian's going to be taking a look at how we've issued technical releases not only recently, but also in the past, and how they've dealt with some sticky or thorny kind of issues. The technical is pretty much on us, but he'll just be looking at whether or not we were pretty much missing anything, or if there's something else that we need to kind of better address in the draft. Two things that are still outstanding. One, we've never really clarified, I think, the issue with materiality, right? Helen's done a great job, as well as the others that have worked with her in a little subgroup. Initially, we wanted to address in the process flow chart materiality at the beginning, saying, hey, look, let's think about materiality before we start looking for P3s. Maybe that will be a way that we can limit the data search. That's the thinking, to kind of reduce the burden on the preparer, make it a little bit easier on the auditor as well. And some of you objected, saying, no, that's really not the right way to go. I think, if I can't remember, or if I can remember, I think there was an auditor who may have objected, but someone objected and said, no, materiality should be addressed at the back end. I think it may have even been Bruce Henschel. Bruce, forgive me for quoting your name, not in vain, but so I think Bruce may have some thoughts on materiality. So we've got to deal with that. I don't think that is a big issue, because the board kind of takes a laissez-faire approach and says, hey, look, you figure it out, right? You and the auditor. So we don't want the TR to get held up on this. But we do want to kind of address it for the board. GSA, they've been very busy, so I know I have not heard back from April or Christy regarding some of their comments or responses to some of your comments regarding one of the examples we have there with energy savings contracts. I'm not sure if it was, again, Commerce Department or maybe Energy. One of you've questioned, said, hey, look, is this kind of right that we want to put all ESPCs in a bucket, saying that, they should all be treated in this one way that kind of GSA is framed in the answer to the question? So we want to wait for GSA to get back, but let me segue to the fact that GSA, I'm sure, has been very busy, like we all are, with year end, or most of you are, but also the leases project. Some of you are following leases, and you're understanding that now the board is considering practical expedience with embedded leases. And Alan Perry, who's done a wonderful job on that project, and myself have been discussing embedded leases now for months, if not a longer period than that. But most recently, really getting into embedded leases a bit. And my concern, and it's shared by the board, is that these could impact P3s, okay? Because a P3, if it's using a lease, and it's really for service delivery of some sort, you know, that's an embedded lease, or it could be viewed as an embedded lease. So, does the board really intend for leases guidance on measurement and reporting to then come over to the leases world? I mean, to the P3 world? They haven't even really thought about that. We're bringing that to their attention, saying, folks, time out. What you do on leases right now, maybe leave it to leases. P3s, if the task force here and others later on when we get to phase 2, if you want to adopt leases accounting, fine. We'll go to the board and say leases accounting is one way you can look at it, okay? Personally, Dom Savini, from what I've looked at, lease accounting is complicated, okay? I personally would like to simplify P3 reporting. The big question now is, unlike leases, or maybe you could say kind of similar to leases, do we treat the P3 by its component structures like you would for revenue recognition, looking at different, milestones or metrics to report revenue in increments based on maybe certain line items in a contract, for example, certain deliverables? Do we want to do that kind of like it's an approach almost similar to leases, where they're looking at the service components and then the lease components separately, right? Or do we want to take the P3s and just look at them as an asset in and of itself and submit it to separate measurement and recognition, not really drilling down, if you will, but looking at the overall, benefits to the government, and what the government has sacrificed to get those benefits, okay? Basically, what I'm arguing for is, should we just go with a simple, if you will, net present value type approach, based upon the relative cash flows? That's one option you have. But I kind of digress. I just want to bring this to your attention, that I think this is why GSA has been out of pocket for a while on top of year end. But it is something we should follow. Follow leases, and let's see how it plays into the P3 world. We're not sure, but we kind of know that they are joined at the hip a bit. So the other thing I wanted to let you know is that our user group has gotten together and fashioned, I think, a very well written document on their perspectives as to what they would be looking for. Again, we're presenting all views, of course, and in a balanced manner, because the board speaks in a balanced approach, or at least it should be, and historically has. So preparers and auditors will be allowed certainly to look at these comments, critique, provide your responses to them. But basically, I think what the users are saying is, we recognize the limitations in financial reporting, number one. We also recognize the burden on the preparers and the cost of the government, number two. And in a perfect world, what the users are saying, these are the things we'd like to get. A lot of procurement information, some of which might be impossible to give because it could be prejudicial to an award. So the users understand that, and they're saying, look, in a perfect world, this is the information we would need to make a relative judgment if this P3 really is a good deal, if you will, as Larry Checco would say, for the taxpayer. However, recognizing that we can't, for good reasons, and the users get it, that makes the paragraph 24 requirements all the more important. So that's kind of where we're at, right? That the disclosures are important. And that's why we're trying to get the illustrations. So let me get into the illustrations now. The illustrations, team, various folks have looked at them, right? On the P3 task force. I've assigned them to certain people, certain groups, and you've all critiqued them, you've looked at them. We're going to float those back out. But two observations came back from Annie at VA and Cecina, I believe also VA. I think they might have gotten back to me independently of one another, but nonetheless, they were, look, Dom, we're we've got some suggested solutions in here, but can we get like an alternate universe solution? Not everything is as cut and dried, right? And I'm open to that. I mean, similarly, we did this with Standard 47 on reporting entity, where we provided two paths, right? Two answers to a set of circumstances based upon a slight modification or change either in the facts or circumstances themselves or in the interpretation thereof. I have to go back to Standard 47 to see which of the two really took prominence over distinguishing why there were two different outcomes. I believe it was more of a judgment thing. But anyway, we can come up with an alternative scenario to each one of the ones that we have. I think we have 5 illustrations now. But understand, working with Annie and Cecina, it's clear to me these are not easy to do, but they're also not hard. They're not easy in the sense that you just can't say, well, FaceAb's illustration 1 says this, but FaceAb's illustration 1 could say this too. Okay, I get it, but how do we get to that? And that's where the real thinking comes in the case study. So you have to understand the initial case study, come up with changed facts and or circumstances, or change judgment, and explain that judgment, right? But we have to make sure that judgment, that logic that you have in your alternative universe correlates back to the initial one. So they're the same. We don't, at least similar thinking processes. We don't want to show that, there's a bipolar problem with following, let's say, concepts of materiality or implementing the accounting standards. Do we want to say that there's different judgment? Yes. Let me give you an example. One of the things we can do, and I think Jana brought this out very well, and made a really good point, I think in one of the training classes we did with NASA. Every agency has a different risk appetite. NASA probably, like DOD, and I guess any agency could argue, does some really dangerous work. Okay? Any human being, at least most human beings, would understand taking a rocket ship up into space, right, is not quite like flying to Florida for a vacation. Risks are involved. Matter of fact, something can happen. We had that horrible incident with that submarine about 3 months ago that kind of just imploded, right? Risks. Those are higher risk appetite agencies. They have to. So their materiality level is different. And that would affect their reporting. And I agree with that. I think that makes perfect sense. The issue is, in a case study world, if we want to take one of the scenarios and show that you have a higher risk appetite agency, we have to explain that. And how does the agency develop their higher risk appetite? How do they document it so the auditor and the user feel comfortable with the fact that we're just not hiding Elon Musk's activity or Jeff Bezos's activity because they're concerned, it doesn't matter where we sit. There are concerns in the country that big money, right, can influence government and can sometimes steer government to do things for big money, right, as opposed to the common woman or man, taxpayer, public citizen, etc. So we want to be cool with these. We want to keep them real. We want to be fair, and we want to take a really, I think, measured approach. So again, if you're interested in doing alternative case studies, let me know, because I've got Annie and Cecina that have kind of stepped forward a bit, but I could put a little working group together, and we can focus on those. But again, they will take a lot of work. The case studies I have for you now literally took me, and then I got a group of auditors together. It took us all total a year just to get through. the case study facts, you know, the edits, the different points of view, the notes. The auditors were all over me like white on rice. Dom, you can't say that. Dom, you better not say that. Nope, you can't do that. So it takes time. So that's why I'm really fortunate. I've got a mix of you on the task force. But other than that, I did want to say I'll be traveling from August 23rd to September 14th. I'll be pretty much out of pocket. I'm going to try to check emails, but I can't guarantee it. Our security officer will not allow me to take our laptop, if you will, overseas. But I am supposed to be getting a government authorized, I don't know, cyber proof phone. So I should be able to check emails, but I haven't gotten the phone yet, so I ain't counting on it, okay? But in any event, I'll be out of pocket. That's why I'm putting this video out. I don't want you to think we're forgetting you or the project. It's that time of year again. I want to wish you all a really good summer. I hope those of you that are in the close are taking it easy, finding time. As you know, I relayed to you a personal incident with one of my former staff when I was a CFO. I know it's stressful, and make sure you take care of your health. The most important thing. Job's not worth it, folks. You might think it is if you're young and you're aspiring to be an SES. You're going to pay a price, and it's your health a lot of times, and your family, and your loved ones. Don't neglect them. I know it's a rough time of year, so please, if you, need to reach out to someone, go ahead, but kind of decompress from all this, because at the end of the day, we're not running an emergency room operation. No one's going to die on a table for our work, okay? Just remember that. Stay well, enjoy the rest of the summer, and I will see you towards the end of September, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.